So now it's probably more so of the conversation in terms of the podcast itself. We're always talking about developing young people and how do we ready them for a men's, adult, win or lose, mortgage on the line, you're getting paid, it's real stuff, versus academy where often people are saying now or talking about development football can be easy, or making it too easy for them. Where do you see? You probably went Rotherham. Okay, I'm in the academy environment. How am I readying these young people for the first team?
I never knew how to kind of contextualise that process. When I worked with Tony Parks at Watford, the best I've ever heard he said, it's our duty at under 18s to professionalise these people. Not these players, these people, to prepare them for what's coming. And he's dead right. Now, does the world right here, right now allow that? Probably not. But the world outside of these bubbles, and when I mean bubble, I'm not talking about health and safety, COVID, but the bubble of under 18, under 23 football, it's getting harsher. It's getting harsher. The attacks that people face now is incredible. It is incredible. If you go through, if we talk about people in general, if you go through the culture of reality TV, I had an ex-player who I worked with who committed suicide from being on reality TV. Wow. And from not being able to cope and deal with it is a bombardment. It is a bombardment. I mean...
So what do you... Because different environments do it different ways. You have your own philosophy, so to speak.
Yeah.
You have your own strategy around it. And in your opinion, what do you think is the best way to ready young people for a first team environment?
You have to develop resilience.
Okay.
You have to develop it.
Yeah.
If they've not been criticised by their coach in 2 years, criticised, I think you've got a poor first touch. This is the session, practice it every day. Or that part of your game's not good enough. Here's how you work on it. Still not good enough. Keep working on it. That's better. Keep working on it. That you're adding layers to these people. It's not sunshine and roses. It really is not. I mean, right here, right now, I'm 10 days, 13 days into a season right here, right now, and I haven't won a game. People don't want me in this job. They don't want me in the job. We're 13 days into a new season. There's people out there that, and it's, I'm lucky because it doesn't really hit me because of my layers. Well, no, my layers that I've had to develop, but my wife reads it.
Yeah.
My dad reads it. Yeah. My brother, all my they all read it. They all get defensive. They all start going back and, things like that. And we're not preparing them for that. We really are not preparing them.
Do you think the environment has... I go black or white. I go, do you know what? 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago when that was a constant in the environment where coaches and adults were going criticise to help support them because that's what they're going to get in a first team environment. And then it's almost like we've gone right the other way, where we've gone, do you know what, don't criticise the boys. And listen, my background and in regards to what I'm saying, so how are we supporting them? Because we go right the other way, we go, do you know what, you can't criticise, because if you criticise, you might be getting them angry or...
bullying.
Exactly, you might be doing that to them. So, whereas, listen, I've spoken to the boys in different types of environments and they've gone, no, it's just, I'm being readied. And other boys, they'll go, do you know what, it's too much for me.
Too much.
It's so difficult, I think, in regards to managers and developers of young people, especially the young adults now, to go, where is the marker for the individual child?
But criticise is not coaching.
Yeah.
You apply an observation, don't you, as a professional coach, and you then give them the solution, and then you help them work at that solution. That's coaching. Yeah. But it starts, unfortunately, with the criticism. Yeah. I think I think your shooting on the turn is, not at the level it should be or could be. Yeah. Could be. I'll come and work with you. That's coaching.
Yeah, come and help you with it.
I'll come and help you with it. And as a coach, and my even though I'm a manager now, my trade is coaching. So the thing I still enjoy most is we've had an apprentice in our first team squad for the first 2 weeks of the season, and I'm helping him every day with his feet because his feet are very wooden and they don't move.
Probably like mine.
Yeah, very much like yours, but you playing cardboard boxes on your feet. So. But it only took 12 minutes to get that in. But he needs some practice. I'll help you practice. It's the bit I enjoy the most. And I'll do that with my 30-year-old. I don't like this. I don't really like this about what you're doing. I want it to be like this. I'll come and help you. That's coaching. All it is coaching. And listen, for me, over time, that has changed. Don't get me wrong, that has changed. But that's changed over time because the teaching of coaches has changed over time.
I guess, in regards to the young people in the environment, so I'm a 17-year-old, I'm a 20-year-old, do I know too much as well? Do I go, do you know what, if I don't want Darren shouting at me, hang on a minute, here's what I do. I just go and I'll say to the other coach, you know what, why is he talking to me like that? Or because you probably didn't get that 15 years ago, 20 years ago. The players just kind of developed the resilience to go, this was what we're getting in the environment, right or wrong. And they went, do you know what, actually, do I speak up about it? And I always think you can do it, but you just got to do it in the right way. And often conversations are with young people is that, do you know what, if you're not happy with something, it's okay to not be happy.
Absolutely.
But the way that you communicate is vitally important. Do you think that we have got to a stage where players or young people have not developed a resilience and because of it look for a different way out?
Absolutely. We are talking about the smallest window of success, aren't we? In terms of youth development, we are talking about the smallest window of what is successful. I think it's 0.02 or 0.1 or 0.02. Yeah. 0.02%. Right, so in my eyes, I take that statistic quite seriously because I want to give that young player all of me, everything that I've got. I have to arm him with it. So I have to arm him with confidence, hugely important in young people. I have to arm him with a technical ability, a profile, tactical knowledge. I have to make sure that I've looked at myself and I've given him physical work, psychological work, all of these things. But for me to do that, I have to give him all of me. I have to. So I have to give him the good, the bad, and it's just about management. It's just about management of that individual. At 16, are you emotionally the same as when you're in your 20s? Sometimes. You don't know when different things come along. Am I the same person now at 37 as I was at 31 before, I had children? No, of course I'm not. But that sometimes happens to someone at 22. Yeah. That sometimes. So you've got all of these different things, but definitely one size never fits all because we're all so unique. What we're not doing is we've not got the capability now. We haven't got the capability now to put them through that formula where they're exposed to this real world, education.
So how now? And maybe this is to do with resources and having. Do you know what? You look at academies now. You've got a bank of people, different professionals. Yeah, experts. Whereas you've got different expertise in it. How are we arming them then, or are we not doing enough? And is that because you look at the top end. You look at let's look at England, so to speak, and their youth teams. Loads of talent coming through. It's what you see on the eye. Yeah. You're outside and looking in. Yeah. How are we arming them if we're not able to do it in a way where we are criticising or giving them those layers of resilience to be able to deal with a first team changing room?
The best I've seen is John McDermott, who's now with the FA and was at Tottenham. Yeah. He's hard. Yeah. He's a tough northerner. Yeah. He's hard. He's realistic to the era, the generation. Yeah. He's realistic to language that's used in a first team dressing room at times. Mm-hmm. He's a fantastic coach and a brilliant developer of young people. That's my opinion. It's a pretty decent opinion because the FA have just employed him in one of the biggest roles in youth football, for England. Yeah. Imagine if let's flip it the other way. Instead of looking at everyone, let's take the most talented player at 17, right? And you put him in that first team dressing room because the manager wants him in that first team dressing room because he is talented. So, I had Wilmot in my first team dressing room at Stevenage at 17. Every day. He coped with that unbelievably well. Good family, great mum and dad, very solid. I know everyone hasn't got that benefit. How would every one of those 17-year-olds deal with senior players in the dressing room? Troy Deeney, Man United senior players, Tottenham senior players, Harry Kane's, They're not going to walk around with a HR head-on. Players don't walk around with HR head. They walk around with, I have to win Saturday. Yeah. So I think we should be preparing, because we're all in it for development, aren't we? Yeah. We're all in it to get that player in the first team. We all say it. I read it 3,000 times a year. We're going to improve our development at our club and we're going to create a pathway. Well, if the manager doesn't like any of them, there's no pathway. So that's an imaginary pathway until manager goes, he's top drawer, get him with me. That's the pathway. If that player comes up, now I think that's when you work.
Keeping them in.
Yeah, and, making sure. But that's a really good youth team coach. A youth team coach does that. He walks up to that player. How are you getting on? Are you okay? I checked in on Wilmot once a week when he was a first team player at Watford. For my time, all my time there, for my 8 months there. Why? Because that was still part of my duty and my relationship with him.
I guess you're looking. That's probably where we talk about coaches now and all the professionals within coaching. You've got your medical, you've got your sports science, you've got your psychologist, you've got your player care, you've got your safeguarding, you've got your education. And has those kind of little roles been taken away from the coach? Because I think personally, some of the better coaches that I've seen are able to tap into all those different things. They're able to be a psychologist at times in terms of working with the players. Now, in regards to you as a person, do you think that has, in regards to what we see as development for the young people, has that had a negative effect on you as a person?
No.
No?
No, definitely not. Yeah. My greatest achievement were the 14 ex-apprentices I had at my wedding.
Wow.
That travelled to the northeast. Some you've worked with, some that came through and ended up working for me. They were apprentices for me right at the very start. But it was the Carl Vassals who now plays for Rotherham. Actually, I think he moved today, but he was at Rotherham. Emmanuel Oyelecki, who's at Port Vale, driving from London to come see me on my reception and my wedding day. They're the best moments. They're the things I'm most proud of. It's not selling players, not giving first team debuts. It's that connection and that build of a family that you get from being the under-18 job's the best job in any football club. It is the best job. When we worked together at Watford, I did one team, and that was the Youth Cup team, under-18s. Yeah. It's the best job. I loved it. It's better than first team management. It's better than any of the other jobs, and I've done them all now. And that's what I hold dearest to me. I hold the relationships where, some of the Watford players phone me for advice still. Some of my Stevenage apprentices phone me for advice still.
And it's not something you hear about. I think in terms of relationships, you don't often hear about that. And I think probably someone like yourself and other people as well, it's not always something you brag about. Yeah. For what reason, I don't know. Because I think it's quite important to understand that post the actual football relationship. Yeah. You have developed personal relationships and people relationships with individuals that people don't often see because, from an outsider looking in, and if I didn't know you and if I didn't speak to you, I might think, Darren Sarll, have you heard of him? He's actually that guy who shouts and screams at people. But actually, you're able to develop relationships with people. You're able to have those relationships post the football, which means you're actually a person yourself.
Look, I go back to it. When I'm working in youth, I give them everything I got. They get, if they need that father figure, I've worked with so many players that have come from overseas. They've needed a dad. They've needed a dad away from their dad because they're living away from home. Do they need a friend? Do they need advice? Do they need a coach? They might not need any of that. Ben Wilmot didn't need any of it. He just needed a coach. He needed a manager to say, "You're really, really good, son. Come and play. Let's get your career going earlier than everyone else's." That's all I did for Ben. That was it. And the really good ones, going back to the John McDermotts, the really top youth developers, the Inglethorpes, people like that, they know which one to be
at the right time.
At the right time. And we saw that. We had a couple of examples of that, at Watford, of players that had really bad times in their lives, and they responded to Watford because of the way we and the team, sports science, welfare, education, how we managed that stage of his life, which was a difficult stage for someone.
Do you feel like people know that about you?
Maybe they may not do. I mean, before I spoke to you tonight, I spoke to Fraser Franks, my first youth team captain. Yeah. We've been through a hell of a lot together, and when he decided to come out of the game, he phoned me. And I'm guessing I was one of a minority, if you like.
Agreed.
I'm letting you know, I've got to make this announcement. I haven't told anyone yet, but I've got to retire. Was it really sad, unbelievably sad news for a really top young man and a good player? Brilliant guy, good dad, nice, good person in his community, very, very conscientious. But the fact that he wanted to ring me, just to let me know, I took that as a big plus. Now, if no one else knows that, I don't really care, because all I have to know is I gave him all of me. And I gave him all of me, as I try and do with all the players. May not have been successful with that sort of strategy, because when we all get it wrong, we all get it right, let's be honest. But that was unbelievable. That was a real mark of respect. And so those types of relationships where they still want to seek a contact from you, advice from you. This is happening in my world. How can I help? All that sort of stuff.
No, I think it's something that you kind of, coaches and managers have this hard exterior, and I do think that sometimes coaches and managers, and definitely the culture and environment, how we see coaches and managers, they don't get enough credit for some of the hidden qualities that they do.
The human being
qualities.
Absolutely.
And because you don't see it, and 9 times out of 10 you see them on the pitch, you see them on the sideline,
absolutely,
shouting or dictating or organising because you want to get a result. You don't often see it. And don't get me wrong, there are some out there that don't do it at all. And probably need some learning around that in terms of developing a relationship. But I definitely think it's something that you might not hear enough, because if you hear it, it can kind of be seen as a weakness, maybe.
No, but I think, when I go back to when I started coaching, I remember the first thing an FA tutor told me on a national course: you've got to be the boss. Yeah. That's the first thing. If you're not the boss of this session, if you're not the leader, if you don't keep control and you lose control of the session, that's a failure as an elite coach. Be the boss. Be the boss. So that's drilled into you. So, as a very impressionable 22-year-old doing my A licence, be the boss. Okay, if that's what means being an A licence coach is. I mean, I did my A licence with Roy Keane. He had no problem being the boss. do you understand? I did as I was told. Let me tell you, he didn't have to say twice. But that was imparted into you. That was a very, that back then it was a very command style of 100%. Coaching. Now it's a little bit more, more and variable depending on getting to know your players. But that's important in anything. You've got to get to know your players. You've got to learn what makes them go, and what motivates them, and what they've got in their life, what they haven't got in their life, what they need.
Interesting. Okay, so we flip it now, and you're in a first team environment now, or when you're in a first team environment, and now rather than preparing them, you're receiving them. You're receiving these young people, and you're going, Yeah, no, not really. Yeah, ready. I'll take you on. Yeah, you've got. What are you now wanting to receive in terms of youth development? So anytime a youth team player comes up, you go, that's what I want to receive.
Well, look, first and foremost, as a first team manager, you want a good player that's going to help you win. I mean, it does, being a manager does cut through a lot of the cloud in development, because unless I win on a Saturday, I don't sleep. And I don't sleep until the next win. You know, so there's lots of different elements to, you know, I've got a duty to put the best team out to ensure my players earn as much money as they can in a season. You know, I've got so many responsibilities that actually kind of lean away from development. But in my, obviously I had 2.5 years as manager at Stevenage. I brought through loads and loads of players. Probably too many in my last year. It was probably at my detriment. Probably cost me, definitely cost me. At Yeovil, we've got a few, but we've taken a few from big clubs and we've had ridiculous success with it. Really great success. I mean, we had a lad from Birmingham last year called Romeo Hutton, a right back, and he's now playing every week in League Two for Stevenage, ironically. But he come in, and I've never seen a young player ride the wave of a season's emotions like him. Incredible. I mean, he would make horrendous errors like they do when they're young and they're on their first loan. Yeah. Horrendous errors. I'd bring him out the team. Sometimes I wouldn't tell him. Sometimes I just name the team and you're not on the team, son.
And that's the way he develops his resilience.
And sometimes there is no explanation. I don't want you to play. It's my team. I've got a duty to win the game. This is how I think I'm going to win the game. But he was incredible at riding that wave. He'd have a couple of games maybe out. He'd find himself back in, lack of form from his competitor, injury from his competitor. Sometimes I'd see something in training, I think, he played more minutes than any other defender. And I've got defenders with championship experience, winning championships and playing in the Premier League. He played more minutes than any of them. And he was the best I've ever worked with for that. Wilmot had it as well. He had ice in his veins. He just sails along. I mean, it's incredible. And then you get other players that are very spiky, young players that are very spiky. The minute they're not in their position, in the team, in the shape they want.
Yeah. Meltdown.
I want to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Off you go. I can't have people here that don't want to be here.
So you're kind of talking really, two things I'm hearing now is definitely you got to be ready in your head. You got to be ready for the environment in your head, but also you got to be adaptable.
Absolutely. I say to any loan player that comes in, I said, as long as Yeovil's at the forefront of your behaviour, performance, actions, you'll be absolutely fine. If you think you're here just to serve the needs of your development while we lose or make mistakes or don't win games,
just a kickabout for you. Sorry,
this ain't going to work. You're here to help us win. And if you're here to help us win, my job then at first team manager stage is to give him the platform to get experience, to make mistakes, to develop resilience, to have a crowd on him. You know, and the things crowds say, there's no filter in a crowd. There's no one policing. You know, we've seen
what
it.
They're going to say to you.
Exactly right.
No one's going to walk around. Stewards are going to maybe half get there and forget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
no disrespect stewards.
So you know, it really is a mixed bag. But you know, we've had some really good success here in the last 14 months. When I joined, we had 4 first-year pros. I had 8 players when I joined Yeovil. 4 of them were first-year pros, 4 18-year-olds out of 8. So, you know, 2 of them are still with us, 2 of them are not still with us. But the 2 of them who are with us have gone through the most amazing education because they're playing with Carl Dickinson, won the championship, Lee Collins, come through at Wolves, 31 years old, tough man, Charlie Lee, 5 promotions, 100 championship games. And they're the people that actually take the young people in that dressing room to the next stage. And my job is to recruit those senior players to help me work with those younger players. So I give our younger players, I always give them a senior player.
Yeah.
This is Romeo, this is Lee. Any problem you get that you don't think you can come to me, go and see him. He's the best guy ever. He's a dad, he's a homeowner, he's got this under his belt, that experience. If you need him, he'll give you his number after training. If you need him at any time, he knows his job and what he has to do for you.